Today, we will talk about whether a new war is likely to start between Israel and Palestine and what the current situation looks like in detail. The conflict between Israel and Palestine is one of the longest and most complex political and military struggles in the world. For decades, both sides have been involved in repeated wars, clashes, and periods of tension, especially in Gaza and the West Bank. The most recent major escalation began in October 2023, when Hamas launched attacks inside Israel, followed by large-scale Israeli military operations in Gaza. Since then, thousands of people, mostly civilians, have been killed, and millions have been affected by displacement, destruction, and humanitarian crises. In recent months, several temporary ceasefires have been arranged with the help of international mediators such as the United States, Egypt, and Qatar. These pauses in fighting allowed some humanitarian aid to enter Gaza and led to limited exchanges of prisoners and hostages. However, these agreements have been very fragile. Both sides have accused each other of breaking the terms, and small-scale attacks, airstrikes, and border clashes have continued. As a result, trust between the two sides remains extremely low. One major reason for ongoing tension is the severe humanitarian situation in Gaza. Many areas lack clean water, electricity, medical supplies, and food. Hospitals have been damaged, and thousands of families have lost their homes. This suffering creates anger, frustration, and hopelessness, which can easily turn into further violence. At the same time, Israel argues that military pressure is necessary to prevent future attacks and weaken militant groups such as Hamas. Political instability is another key factor. On the Palestinian side, internal divisions make it difficult to form a united negotiating position. On the Israeli side, domestic political pressure and security concerns often lead leaders to take strong military actions. Peace talks regularly fail because both sides disagree on core issues such as borders, settlements, Jerusalem, refugees, and security arrangements. Regional and international influences also affect the situation. Some neighboring groups and countries support Palestinian factions, while others support Israel. If fighting intensifies, there is a serious risk that the conflict could spread to other areas, such as southern Lebanon, and involve more regional actors. This would make the situation far more dangerous. So, is a new full-scale war likely to begin? At present, there is no official declaration of a new major war. However, the situation remains highly unstable. Frequent ceasefire violations, continued military operations, political deadlock, and deep humanitarian suffering mean that the risk of renewed large-scale conflict is very high. Even a small incident could trigger a major escalation. In conclusion, while a new war has not officially started, the possibility remains very real. Without serious long-term diplomatic efforts, strong international cooperation, and meaningful steps to improve living conditions and rebuild trust, peace will remain fragile. The region continues to stand on a thin line between uneasy calm and another devastating conflict. If a major war breaks out again between Israel and Palestine, its effects will not be limited to these two regions alone. Instead, it will impact the entire Middle East and many countries around the world. Such a war can shake the global system politically, economically, diplomatically, and humanitarianly. Below is a detailed explanation of which countries may be affected and how. First, the greatest impact will be on Palestine and Israel themselves. In Palestine, especially in Gaza, people will suffer the most, as there is already a shortage of food, water, electricity, and medicine. If war begins, more homes will be destroyed, unemployment will rise, and casualties will increase. In Israel, security problems will intensify, people will live under constant fear and pressure, and the economy will be affected. Next, Lebanon is likely to be strongly affected because Hezbollah operates there and supports Palestinians. If the conflict expands, fighting between Israel and Lebanon may start, which could further weaken Lebanon's already fragile economy. Similarly, Syria may also be affected, as many armed groups are present there, and Israel has previously carried out strikes in Syrian territory. Egypt and Jordan will also feel the deep impact of the war. Egypt shares a border with Gaza, so a large number of Palestinian refugees may enter Egypt, putting pressure on its resources. Jordan already hosts many Palestinians, so political and social tensions could increase there. Iran plays an important role in this conflict by supporting groups such as Hamas and Hezbollah. If the war becomes more intense, direct or indirect confrontation between Iran and Israel is possible, which could drag the entire region into conflict. In this situation, Gulf countries such as Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Qatar may also be affected, especially because oil transportation and trade could be disrupted. On the global level, the United States will be strongly impacted, as it is Israel's main supporter. In the event of war, political pressure on the U.S. will increase, military resources may be used, and it may face international criticism. Similarly, European countries will also be affected, particularly because of refugee flows, rising energy prices, and security concerns. The war will also affect the global economy. If instability grows in the Middle East, oil prices may rise sharply. This will increase inflation in many developing countries, including Pakistan. Food, fuel, and electricity may become more expensive, directly affecting ordinary people's lives. Pakistan will also be indirectly affected. Public sympathy for Palestinians is strong in Pakistan, so emotional reactions may increase. In addition, global economic pressures, higher fuel prices, and diplomatic challenges may influence the country. From a humanitarian perspective, this war would be extremely destructive. Thousands of innocent children, women, and elderly people could suffer. Education, healthcare, and employment systems would be damaged, and an entire generation might grow up with trauma and deprivation. These problems can last for decades. In conclusion, if a major war breaks out again between Israel and Palestine, its effects will spread far beyond the two territories. The Middle East, Europe, America, Asia, and the global economy would all be affected. That is why the international community must prioritize peace, dialogue, and humanitarian values over violence, in order to prevent further destruction and suffering. The chances of a new war between Israel and Palestine and its possible global consequences are extremely serious and important issues. This conflict does not affect only the Middle East. Its impact spreads across the entire world. Many people today are asking whether a major war is likely to happen and, if it does, what damage it could cause globally. Below is a detailed discussion of these questions. First, when we talk about the chances of war, it is important to understand that the current situation is very fragile. Although ceasefires and peace talks have taken place from time to time, they have rarely lasted long. There is a deep lack of trust between both sides. Because of this, even small incidents can quickly turn into major confrontations. Border clashes, airstrikes, rocket attacks, and retaliation are frequent, showing how tense the situation remains. Political leaders on both sides also face strong public pressure, which often pushes them toward tough decisions that can lead to war. Another major reason for the high risk of conflict is the severe humanitarian crisis in Gaza and other Palestinian areas. Many people suffer from poverty, unemployment, hunger, illness, and homelessness. When people live in such difficult conditions, anger and frustration increase, making violence more likely. At the same time, Israel feels constant security threats and believes military action is necessary to protect its citizens. As a result, both sides continue to rely on force, which keeps the cycle of conflict alive. Regional politics also increase the chances of war. Countries such as Iran, Lebanon, and Syria are indirectly involved in this conflict. Different groups receive support, funding, and weapons from outside powers, which makes the situation more complicated. If any of these countries become directly involved, the conflict could expand into a much wider regional war. For this reason, experts believe that the possibility of war cannot be ignored and remains a constant danger. If a full-scale war does break out, the damage will be enormous and long-lasting. The greatest loss will be in human lives. Thousands or even millions of innocent people could be killed, including children, women, and the elderly. Many more will be injured or forced to flee their homes. Millions could become refugees, seeking shelter in neighboring countries and beyond. These displaced people often face poverty, discrimination, and uncertainty about their future. Education and healthcare systems would suffer greatly. Schools, colleges, and universities could be destroyed or shut down, disrupting the education of an entire generation. Hospitals may be damaged, and shortages of medicine and medical equipment would make it difficult to treat the wounded and sick. The effects of this destruction could last for decades. Economically, such a war would harm the entire world. The Middle East is one of the most important regions for oil and gas production. If instability increases, energy supplies could be disrupted, causing oil prices to rise sharply. Higher energy costs would lead to inflation worldwide. Developing countries, in particular, would struggle as food, fuel, and electricity become more expensive. Poor families would suffer the most. Global trade would also be affected. Important shipping routes, ports, and trade centers could become unsafe. Delays in transportation would disrupt supply chains, affecting industries and businesses across the world. Many companies could face losses, and unemployment may rise in several countries. Politically, global instability would increase. Major powers such as the United States, European countries, Russia, and China may become more involved to protect their interests. This could lead to increased tensions between these powers. In the worst case, such rivalry could contribute to a larger international conflict, which would be dangerous for humanity as a whole. Security problems would also grow. Terrorism, extremism, and violent activities could increase in different parts of the world. The risk of attacks in various countries might rise, making ordinary citizens feel unsafe. Governments would be forced to spend more money on security and defense, reducing funds available for education, health, and development. Countries like Pakistan would also be affected indirectly. Rising oil prices would increase inflation, weaken the currency, and damage the economy. Public emotions about the conflict could intensify, creating internal political pressure. On the diplomatic level, Pakistan and similar countries would need to make careful decisions to balance their international relationships. The psychological and social effects of war would be deep and long-lasting. Children and young people who grow up in war zones often suffer from trauma, fear, and mental health problems. These issues can affect their entire lives. Societies may become more divided, with increased hatred, mistrust, and intolerance. Such conditions make peace even harder to achieve in the future. In conclusion, the chances of war between Israel and Palestine remain significant because the current situation is unstable and full of tension. If such a war begins, its damage will not be limited to the region but will spread across the world. Human suffering, economic crises, political instability, and social destruction would be its major consequences. For this reason, it is essential for the international community, regional powers, and both sides to choose dialogue, patience, and peaceful solutions instead of violence. Only through sincere efforts toward peace can future generations be protected from further tragedy and destruction.